Hi, sweet beans. Welcome back to Wild Geese. I'm your host, Anna. Okay, so I read something recently that really stuck with me. It's this quote by Carl Rogers, who's a psychologist, and he says, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." And I don't know why that hit me differently than anyone who's ever said, like, accept yourself, love yourself. Like, when people say that kind of thing, it's such a platitude to me now. But this quote, I feel like it hits on two desires within me that feel like they're clashing. And one desire is that desire to like always be changing and moving forward and evolving. And the other desire is to just accept myself exactly as I am and stop living in pursuit of some like future ideal version of myself. Because at the end of the day, that perfectly healed, perfectly optimized version of myself doesn't exist. And these two desires, like on the surface, they feel like they're clashing. But the more I think through this episode, the more I think that's not true. And so the idea for this episode has been kind of like ping-ponging around in my head since February. I've been thinking about it very casually since I had a conversation with a friend where we were talking about radical acceptance. And radical acceptance, as I understand it, I am not a psychologist, is a distress tolerance skill that's used in dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's basically meant to keep pain from turning into suffering by acknowledging situations we can't control without judgment. And I just remember having a casual conversation with this person where we were talking about how if there's something that's upsetting that's outside of our control, the instinct is to try to control it more and more. And half the time that just kind of like solidifies the problem even further. I think we were talking about it in the context of relationships with other people. And we were saying like, if someone's behavior doesn't work for you, the impulse so often is to kind of judge them for the behavior and like try to change it. And in trying to change it, you're trying to control their behavior. But often accepting them and meeting them where they're at is like a much more effective way to see change happen. And don't worry, I'm not about to have a whole episode based on the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins. It's like a running joke between me and my friends. If someone does something just absolutely heinous and horrifying, to be like, well, #let them.
Wait, so what's the big deal? I'm confused.
Somebody totaled my car and drove away, and now my premium's gonna go up.
Okay, let them.
What?
Let them theory. Have you ever heard of it? Let them theory? Like, let them raise your insurance.
She cheated on me with my cousin. Like,
Let her. I mean, let her.
I want to talk about dogma that comes from like all sides that are kind of masquerading as advice, but actually they're self-shaming tactics. I want to talk about how I think our resistance to radical acceptance is tied to our obsession with certainty. I want to talk about escapism. Like, can we fully accept the circumstances of our lives and ourselves and still engage in a little bit of fun escapism every now and then? I also have a listener question that I'm going to be engaging with a little bit. I opened up a new email. It's wildgeesepod. Right? Yes. It's wildgeesepod@gmail.com. If you want to send over questions that you want me to answer on air, advice that you need, anything like that, send it over there. I might do a full Q&A episode soon, but I also just want to kind of intersperse them in episodes if they're relevant. So please only send things to that email if you are comfortable with me reading them on air. But I'm excited to have a little bit more of an advice element. I may just be a 20-something who has no credentials whatsoever to be handing out advice, but I don't know, it's fun. And I do understand the impulse to seek out a good mentor. Speaking of, in the last episode, you heard me talking about the importance of finding a good mentor in your career. For me, it was like a complete non-negotiable to get to where I wanted to be. But you also heard me talking about the struggles of finding a good one for myself, like finding someone that actually has the ability to help in an honest way. That's why I'm happy to share this week's sponsor, Strawberry.me. Strawberry.me connects people with certified career coaches at every stage in their professional lives. Whether you're looking to land better opportunities, negotiate a higher salary, or build a portfolio career that centers your needs and values at any given time, Strawberry.me takes the guesswork out of the process and makes high-quality career coaching actually accessible and actionable. The coaches work with you to create a plan tailored to your situation, so you're not just getting the general career advice that you can find anywhere online. Instead, you're getting a proven process that helps you take control of your career instead of waiting for something to change. I firmly believe that coaching should be for everyone, not just executives. Having a good career coach when I was waiting tables was the thing that got me to where I am today. With Strawberry.me, you can get career coaching from anywhere on your schedule. So if you're ready to be the creative director of your career, get expert coaching today at strawberry.me/Anna Howard and claim 50% off your first coaching session. But anyway, this episode has been floating around in my head for a long time now, but it feels especially apropos to my own life because I just moved in with my partner. And I've lived with a partner before, and not to get too personal, but there was definitely a lot of judgment coming from both sides. Like, both of us had a really hard time accepting the other person's quirks and downfalls, you know, like things that are very human. When you are living with a person, it's like, all right, you either decide to accept that person for who they are in their own home, or you decide to judge the shit out of them and turn your home into a hostile environment. And I like to think that I've learned a lot since the end of my last relationship. But what has been interesting about moving in with a partner that I feel accepted by is that I can feel myself judging myself more harshly because I'm back in an environment. It's obviously a different place, but it's like I'm back in an environment where I was once judged harshly. And now I feel like I'm a bit in anticipation of that. And in my anticipation of being judged by someone else, I'm judging myself and not accepting where I'm at any given moment. Like, if I have a day where I'm just reading all day and I'm not leaving the house, I'm thinking to myself, oh, like, he's witnessing me doing this and he's going to think that I'm a total loser and he's going to think this and he's going to think this and he's going to think this. Meanwhile, he hasn't said any of those things. Those are things I am thinking. So I feel like I've been looking at this radical acceptance thing less on an interpersonal level, like less of like, oh, you need to accept other people's behaviors and whatever in order to see any change, and more on a personal individual level of like, you need to accept your own behaviors in order to see change happen. And it's always so cool when I feel an idea becoming more relevant to me in my life. I also start to come into contact with other books and TikTok videos and TV shows and whatever, all of these sources that are completely disconnected that I didn't pick up in anticipation of them having anything to do with this, but then they do have something to do with this. And so suddenly there were like 3 different things that seemed to be speaking exactly to this issue that I started to read in the past week. And I was like, okay, this has to be the next thing that I talk about. Like, themes of radical acceptance came up in the audiobook that I'm listening to, in the book that I'm reading Anais Nin. I still am not sure if I'm ever saying her name right. Anais? I don't know. But I'm reading her diary and she has a whole section about this from like the 1930s. I've been seeing TikToks about it. Like, it just feels like suddenly all of the things that I'm interacting with are talking about this. So it was time. I want to start this conversation with a TikTok that I saw from someone named Rulerless Casey, who I actually had a conversation with when I first started this podcast and I was doing guest conversations. I had a conversation with her and the file was corrupted, so it was never aired, which is a big bummer. She is super smart, but I thought that this was an interesting place to start, especially because we've already mentioned Mel Robbins once today. And I just think this is a good launching off point because it made me think a bit differently.
I don't want to be one more person piling on and criticizing Mel Robbins, but I do want to critique her ideas. Starting with this one. She says, if you made the changes you've been avoiding, you'd have the life you deserve. This is dogma. It will fit like a key in the lock if you're vulnerable to dogma based on your past experiences. This same unhelpful idea shows up in a lot of places. There's the evangelical version. If you'd let Jesus into your heart, you'd be saved and your pain would end. The pseudoscientific version. If you perfect your vibration, you will attract your perfect life. The broken family systems version. If you were less lazy, fat, undisciplined, you'd be worthy of love and good things happening to you. The hustle bro version. If you stop making excuses and do the work, you will outperform the competition and win. The advertising version. If you buy this product, you will finally feel okay. The authoritarian version. If you do as you're told, you will be rewarded. Mel Robbins is delivering this advice from on high, as though there is any weight at all behind it. But her version, just like all of the others, is a belief. In other words, a made-up story. And we might as well tell a story that helps us. An alternative story, if you want one. There is no life you deserve. There is no hypothetical better life out there that you could have had if you had made all the right choices and passed the tests. There is just your one life, and you're not doing it wrong. You don't need to do it better. All you need to do is keep going. As Mel Robbins herself said, on a different day, every time you didn't quit, that's progress.
Okay, so I'm looking through the responses on this TikTok, and it's interesting to me how much pushback she's getting. Like, there are people that are like, I object to this completely. We should always be trying to change and grow and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't think that what Casey was saying is that we shouldn't be trying to change and grow. So this is one little comment exchange. Someone says, what if you want to improve your life? Not from a place of brokenness, but from a place of growing and experiencing more. I think we all deserve that kind of better life. And Casey responded, self-compassion and acceptance of reality are the place to start. And I just thought it was interesting that she was kind of in conversation with Mel Robbins here, because I think about the let them theory and how it's kind of this, I've never read the book and I am not going to, because I've heard that it's largely plagiarized from a smaller creator, but it seems like kind of an attempt towards radical acceptance with other people, like accepting other people's behavior, not trying to control other people, whatever. But Mel Robbins is still pushing advice that advocates for not accepting yourself. And don't get me wrong, I actually don't think that advice like that is coming from a place of malintent. But what you're essentially telling people is that if they don't have the life they want, they should just try harder and like you get what you deserve, which just actually is not true. Like, there are so many outcomes that are completely out of our control, and constantly blaming and shaming yourself for not having this life that you quote unquote deserve is not productive. And look, I'm not advocating for a total lack of accountability by any means, but I think that there is this misconception that we can just control ourselves and our actions and everybody in our lives enough to where we can like force our lives into these particular shapes. And I think that has something to do with our obsession with certainty. Like, if I can just control for XYZ factors, then I will have this life that I deserve. I will come out on the other side. Like, I will have the American dream, whatever, all of these things. And there's this quote by Kaveh Akbar from the book Martyr, and it says, the performance of certainty seemed to be at the root of so much grief. Everyone in America seemed to be afraid and hurting and angry, starving for a fight they could win. And more than that even, they seemed certain that their natural state was to be happy, contented, and rich. The genesis of everyone's pain had to be external. Such was their certainty. And so legislators legislated, building border walls, barring citizens from there from entering here. The pain we feel comes from them, not ourselves, said the banners. And people cheered, certain of all the certainty. But the next day they'd wake up and find that what had hurt in them still hurt. This is in the context of the book, which is about Cyrus, who is the son of 2 Iranian immigrants. And after his mother died in Iranian Air Flight 655 when he was a baby, he went on to become a writer who's struggling with addiction and kind of obsessed with this concept of martyrdom. I'm not going to talk further about that book in this episode. I've talked about it in one of my past episodes. I just didn't want to take that quote completely out of context. But thinking about our obsession with certainty, our rejection of reality on so many levels, whether it's interpersonal or individual. I think there's actually such a poignant example of this in Mad Men. And like Casey said, this dogma is passed around, whether it's through like spiritual jargon or advertising slogans. We want to be sold something that will kind of like, I don't know, promise a better future and reject reality as is. We like yearn to be sold certainty. So I want to play this clip from the first episode of Mad Men. I just got through watching the show. I started watching in December and just ended like a week ago. But this scene from the very first episode stuck with me through the end. To give a little bit of context, if you've never seen Mad Men before, Don Draper is our main character. He works at an advertising agency. And in this first episode, they're trying to figure out how to advertise Lucky Strike cigarettes around the time that everyone is figuring out that cigarettes are deeply poisonous. Okay, just kidding. I'm not going to play the scene for you because I will get a copyright strike if I do that. I should have known. So instead, I'm just going to describe the scene for you. So basically, Don is talking to the people at Lucky Strike and trying to figure out what their manufacturing process is so that he can come up with a slogan kind of on the spot because he's a little bit unprepared. So they go through it. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill cigarette manufacturing process, but he says they toast it. And Don is like, wait, stop. Okay. It's toasted. That's your slogan. And the people at Lucky Strike are really confused because they're like, well, that's standard. Everyone's cigarettes are toasted. And Don says this. He says, no, everybody else's tobacco is poisonous. Lucky Strike's is toasted. Advertising is based on one thing, happiness. And you know what happiness is? Happiness is the smell of a new car. It's freedom from fear. It's a billboard on the side of the road that screams with reassurance that whatever you're doing, it's okay. you are okay. So at the core of this scene, there is a fundamental rejection of reality, a complete inability to accept the fact that the product is poisonous, because of course that would destroy the company. And I just love that scene, even though it is kind of hitting you over the head with it a little bit, because Don doesn't say like what we're selling is certainty. He says what we're selling is happiness. But the thing is, happiness is not a constant state for any human being. And selling the idea that it is a rejection of reality. Another place where I've seen this come up is productivity culture. And I actually definitely had my own bout of falling into productivity culture's talk about efficiency, and like I fell down this rabbit hole of thinking I should be using my time better. And so I picked up the audiobook 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, and it actually, like, thank God, was the perfect approach to time management that actually doesn't add to this idea that I'm doing everything wrong and I'm not being efficient enough and whatever. Like, the whole thesis of the book is that we live finite lives. So much of the book is dedicated to talking about the fact that all of us are going to die. The title of the book is 4,000 Weeks because the average person lives 4,000 weeks. And so to think that we could ever reach the point where we have enough time to do everything that we think we should do or want to do or whatever is ridiculous. And so a lot of productivity culture hinges on this idea that we all need to be more efficient in order to get more done. And if we're not doing that, we should feel like shit about ourselves because we've got all of these tools at our disposal to get things done really quickly now. So he uses Inbox Zero as an example, which is like an email hack that people use to get their email inbox to zero every time. And it's supposed to, I think, clear mental clutter and also just make sure that you're not missing out on any important emails, whatever. It's just supposedly a more productive way to approach your emails, which is hilarious to me because I've got thousands of unread emails. He was talking about how if you master like the art of email and you answer all your emails and you delete all the spam and blah, 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 you stay on top of it, that will just double the amount of emails that you're getting. So grasping at efficiency is kind of this trap because the bar keeps moving. It's either like you got better at answering your emails or a machine got better at doing it for you. Now it's like we've got all of these AI efficiency workflow tools that are supposed to free up time for us, but it doesn't actually feel like anyone's time is freer than it was before these tools. But anyway, I feel like I'm getting off topic here. Oliver's point, though, was that the best approach to time management is actually to accept the fact that we have limited time. And so much of time management and productivity hacks and whatever hinges on the refusal to accept the fact that we have limited time. The reality is we are one person with one life who is living with all of these different versions of ourselves in our heads that we like wish we could be. And some of them are contradictory. Some of them it would be impossible to live both of those lives at the same time. There's a grief in that I think we have to move through, because if we like refuse to move through it and we refuse reality and we think like, well, I should be able to be all of those people, then you're just living in shame and you're not moving forward in any direction. Sylvia Plath, the fig tree analogy, she's haunting us all. But when I accept that I am one person with limitations, I feel more free to like play within those constraints than I do when I'm rejecting that premise and I'm falling victim to all of these narratives that are telling me that I'm not doing enough, that if I would just stick to a certain routine, I would be miles ahead by now, that if I was a more social person, I would be a more loved person, whatever. All of those messages that come to tell me that the only productive thing to do is to reject who I am right now, I'm calling bullshit. And I want to touch on a listener question that I think really applies here. It says, "Hi, Anna. So I'm going to do my research on this as well, but I always love hearing your thoughts on the pod and thought it was worth reaching out. Thank you. My question is kind of related to nervous system regulation. See, I'm on testosterone right now, 3 weeks as of today, and it is messing with me. I have a whole host of other mental health issues, but the testosterone is throwing everything I knew out the window. My current methods are singing, dancing, those long finger claws that people use in BDSM. I use it for grounding, and journaling. It's definitely helping, and I'm making great strides, but I want to support the work I'm doing in therapy with other stuff to help me on the day-to-day. So here's the question. How do I build trust in myself and make a life I want to be part of?" I'm doing all the things I need to be doing, but I still feel like I need to run away and start a new life somewhere else. I feel trapped in my dysregulation. Okay, so first of all, I just want to extend some love and warmth to you because I can only imagine that that's a very isolating situation. And I really appreciate you being the first one to write into this inbox. And it just happened to really beautifully fit into this episode. What I will say is that I don't know enough about nervous system regulation to give you any specific advice there. One thing that immediately came to mind is co-regulation. I think everything on your list sounds beautiful and wonderful and kind of individual. If you could get other people involved in some way, I think co-regulation could be very helpful. Joining a choir. You said that you like singing. I think choirs are very good for nervous system regulation. I'm making that up, but it seems like they would be. But I did not pick this letter because I wanted to talk about nervous system regulation. I picked this letter because it actually sounds like you are already doing so much for yourself. You have the coping mechanisms. Like you said, you are showing up for yourself and doing the things that you need to be doing. It actually sounds like this nervous system dysregulation is a completely rational response to like a fundamental change happening in your body. I think your question, how do I build trust in myself and make a life I want to be part of? I think building trust in yourself is about doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And like you said after this, I'm doing all of the things I need to be doing. So I think what you need to do is acknowledge the fact that you're doing all of the things that you need to be doing. And this kind of proves the point of the episode of like, you could be doing all of the things that you need to be doing and you could still be in pain. You could still feel like shit. And that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong or not doing enough. But something that might help, going back to Casey, who I had the TikTok from her at the beginning, she has a lot of content that is really great about meeting yourself where you're at and like stopping the self-shaming tactics that are so ingrained in all of us at this point. And I really liked this TikTok.
5 examples of plans that are based on compassion and productivity. Number 1. If you keep telling yourself you'll wake up at 6, but always hit snooze until 7:30, set your alarm for 7:30 tomorrow. Number 2. If you keep opening and closing that text thread and you're not sure how to reply, open it and close it again every day this week. Number 3, if your afternoon crash hits at 2:15 every day and you can't seem to make yourself do anything for an hour, choose to enjoy an hour break at 2:15 tomorrow. Number 4, if your to-do list rolls over the same 5 unchecked tasks every day, intentionally roll over those same 5 tomorrow. Number 5, if you never seem to cook the groceries you buy and always end up ordering takeout, plan to order takeout again this weekend. The plan you follow through on is better than the better plan.
And it's funny, again, the comment section is a little bit contentious here. And the first comment is talking about how they're afraid that this would just allow them to justify their bad habits. And the comment right under it says, accountability starts where and when self-shaming stops. And I think that really gets to the heart of it. Like, you will trust yourself more the more that you keep the promises that you make to yourself. It's just like with another human being, you know, when you break promises, it ruptures trust. If you can come from that place of self-acceptance and make promises to yourself from there, it will feel a lot better than rejecting the reality of your circumstances. So rejecting the reality that you are just dysregulated right now, that things are not feeling good right now, like things are awry, you know, if you accept that and then make promises accordingly. So instead of like being like, you know what, I know where I'm at. I know that I am dysregulated. I know I am not well. I'm still going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm still going to go to that networking event with 1,000 other people. I'm still going to do all of these things that I feel like I should be doing. Like, if you make those promises to yourself and then you don't follow through, the only thing on the other side of that is shame. So make promises to yourself that come from a place of self-acceptance. And then when you fulfill those promises, celebrate the fact that you did that or acknowledge it in some way. Like, give yourself a gold star, literally, physically. But one more thing I wanted to talk about in your letter is that you said, I still feel like I need to run away and start a new life somewhere else. That's something I can definitely relate to at different times in my life where I was spending a lot of my time daydreaming about some alternate universe where I was living like a cottagecore lifestyle, like living out on a farm that, I mean, I don't know, probably wouldn't have been as picture perfect as I imagined it to be in my head. But, you know, when life gets hard, I think it's the natural thing to start to imagine other versions of your life where things are playing out in a different way. And this is where Anais Nin comes into play. At one point, she's talking kind of about the obsession with certainty, but she says this in different words. But she talks about the role of art in all of this. And she says, many of the romantics destroyed themselves because they could not attain the absolute in love or creation. They could not attain it because it was invented. It was a myth. The neurotic acts the same way. He sets himself impossible goals, imaginary goals. He will win the respect and admiration of a parent who is not even alive anymore. He will gain the love of the world by giving the world something it may not want. He will seek to conquer the unconquerable. In creation, the doctor or the artist can achieve the absolute, but not in life. In life, one has to accept limitation. In creation, there is autocracy, limitations of life, doors closing as one walks forward, curtains of silence, inertia, obstacles like walls. Then to discover that the limitation is within oneself, a malformation, wanting the impossible. In all of them, the imagination is the trap. Evasion is possible by renunciation of life and creation in art, or by accepting limitations. In my books, I can ordain, rule, walk, laugh, shout, accuse, act in any way I please. I am creator and king. The same will applied to life may destroy me. Many creators, romantics, neurotics are tragic figures in life. They are absolutists. They tire of struggling against the limitations of life. And then she says, some Americans have lost the faculty for illusion. They are so pragmatically sober that may be why they have to drink so much. They have not the power of levitation or escape of the poet or the artist who can make another world within this world. And I just think that idea is really cool and interesting to me. Like the idea of using what you're creating as an outlet for the escape that you're craving, instead of like making yourself feel wrong for ever thinking about wanting to escape your life. Like, yes, we can try to heal. Absolutely. But when we come up against our limitations as human beings, whether that's like dysregulation or a lack of time or just an inability to like control the outcome of our days, I think the desire to escape that sometimes is natural. And I think it's not for me to say that you should never feel the desire to escape. Like, how can we get in touch with the faculty of illusion, the power of levitation, as Anais puts it? Accepting reality as it is doesn't mean we have to live in a world without fiction. And you can give that other world to yourself while you're bedridden. You know, Frida Kahlo and Henry Matisse worked from their bed for a good portion of their lives. And I think if they were too concerned with rejecting and shaming themselves for needing to be in bed in the first place, that never would have happened. And I just want to be clear here that when I say they worked from bed, I'm not trying to glorify working through sickness, overworking yourself, productivity, hustle culture, that kind of thing. I'm saying they gave themselves the gift of an escape through art while they were in these circumstances that had them literally trapped in bed. And I think that's pretty cool. And I just don't want any of my content to be used to make you feel like if you're not working from bed, you're failing in some way. That's not the point of this. Okay, I think that's enough from me this week. I feel like I just gave myself a little pep talk. I feel better. This is the type of thing I feel like when it comes to like accepting yourself and accepting people around you and things like this is the type of lesson that I will speak for myself, that I learn and unlearn over and over again. And it kind of feels like I constantly have to pull myself back to this understanding. So it feels good to talk through it. And I love you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.